Welcome to another episode of Wealth Beyond Numbers. I'm your host, Dennis Coral, and today we have a great episode where we're going to talk about business ownership. But before we introduce our guest, I want to tell you why we're doing this episode of business ownership. For most business owners, their business is their biggest asset. It's not their house, it's their primary source of income, it's how they feed their families, it's how they grow wealth. So one of the objectives that we want to accomplish at Wealth Beyond Numbers is to provide information to our audience on how to make better decisions with money, with finance, that extend the aspect of your return on investment or your asset allocation or how did your portfolio do. But it's providing practical knowledge from experts. And today we're going to discuss the business side from the legal perspective. And we have a personal friend that I've known for over 11 years, and also founder of EPGD law firm, Eric Gros-Dubois. Eric, thanks for being here.
Dennis, I'm very happy to be here. And in fact, just to give myself a little plug, I helped you start your business.
That's right.
Once upon a time.
That's right.
So hi, everyone. And this, by the way, this is such a cool studio. And I really feel honored and blessed to be here. And I'm excited to do this podcast with you.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I mean, I've seen your law firm grow over the years, and I look up to you. You inspire me to start my own business, because I remember when I was working as a W-2 employee, looking at you and looking at other business owners, saying, wow, these guys are doing this themselves, and I can get to do this myself. So that was the leap of faith that led me to start my practice.
Now, let me ask you the question. Is it hard?
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course it is. But having a group of people that helps you, that also have gone that road before, helped me so much in so many ways, especially on the legal aspect, because I didn't know what I didn't know. I knew how to run financial advising practice, but I didn't know the business side of it because I was a W-2 employee. So going through that transition and having friends that were also business owners and seeing them and learning from them helped me. And that's why we're doing this podcast on Wealth Beyond Numbers, because business ownership is so common. You know, the U.S. Labor of Statistics, just for the state of Florida, shows as of 2024, 877,000 businesses. So that's a big percentage. That's more than any Fortune 500 in the country.
For sure.
So South Florida has a big makeup of small businesses. A lot of small businesses, they have employees, and those employees have families. So it's very important from the legal aspect, how to run a business, how to grow a business, and also that positions people as a retirement for their future. You know, sometimes people sell their business, no one works forever. So when that transition happens, from the legal perspective, what are things that business owners should understand or know to position their business for a comfortable retirement?
You know, it's a great question, and there's a lot of different ways that people come into business ownership. Some people were just born to be entrepreneurs. Some people inherit businesses. Some people just through life and happenstance end up owning businesses. I'll tell you just personally, I never intended to be a business owner. It was never my intention. I saw myself middle management, corporate America, stock options, and PTO was literally what I thought success was. And it was through a little bit of bad luck that I kind of didn't have any other choices. So I ended up starting my business almost on accident. That's not exactly the right way to put it. But then I will say that I was very blessed to have some really good mentors, some people that are actually in some of the organizations that we're a part of together. And a mentor, I just define it as somebody who's going to be gracious with their time, somebody who's going to be gracious with their advice and share with you their wisdom. And so my firm in particular, we work only with business owners. And it's funny, I've been transitioning from working with startups to working with more of the people ready to exit. And it's a really different mindset. And a lot of times when we get to the exit, we've got to honestly start planning it maybe 3 to 5 years ahead of time. You can't just wake up one day and say, hey, I want to sell my business today, because you need to make sure that your books are in order, your policies and procedures are in order, and we got to start thinking honestly about what the plan is. Is the plan your children? Is the plan selling to a third party? Do we need to engage with a business broker? What are the things that we can do to maximize the value of our asset? And you're right, because for me personally, sure, I own a home and I own some investment properties, but my business is really the most valuable thing that I have. It generates the most income, and I believe it generates the most value. And even for me, so I'm just, I'll put it out there. I'm 45. I started my business when I was 32, and ideally I'm out of this game by the time I'm 60, which means I have 15 years to plan for that. And for me, what I'm going to do, just to speak personally, is I'm going to probably sell to my employees. So someday my firm will be owned by people that used to work for the firm, and they will buy the equity, and they will then eventually I'll sell it all to them. There's a scenario where we get approached by a third party, and quite frankly, I'm probably not even ready to do that. And I'm not saying ready emotionally or psychologically. I'm thinking like I'm ready, like I was just saying. I don't know if my books and my policies and procedures are where they need to be to get the most value if I wanted to sell the whole practice. Which I don't know if it's happening in your industry. I know it's already happened to the dentists and the accountants, but private equity is looking at law firms. They want to come into our world.
Yeah.
And essentially what they'll be doing is buying the lawyers and firing the back office, and consolidating the back office into some warehouse in Tennessee. And they'll be running invoices and marketing and paralegals, if not Tennessee, maybe South America. I personally, I'm building a back office in Medellin.
Oh, wow.
And the talent pool is actually outstanding, which, that I know I'm getting off topic, but that is something that I'm really looking at growing.
Yeah, no, it's actually, we have a few clients that do have back offices outside of the United States, and it's working out for them really well because they save themselves money. They don't have to pay benefits, and the quality of the work is far superior than what they would get from an employee in the U.S. So.
I don't know if I could say far superior, but I'll put it in numbers. They cost about 50% of what a U.S. person costs.
Well, it's a value.
And so you can get 2 for 1 if you look at it one way. And another way is I've found, and this is actually, I don't know across industries, but it's really hard to find good assistants here in the United States. And the example I use in the legal world is the really, really good assistants, they go to law school and then they become lawyers. So it's really, really hard to find a great paralegal that wants to be a paralegal for their whole career, or a great assistant that wants to be an assistant for their whole career. And so what you're kind of left with is kind of the bottom of the barrel. And versus in Colombia, these people are excited to be your assistant, and they're excited for it. So anyways, like I said, I know we got off topic. If I could circle back to the main point, I think that business owners really need to start planning at least 5 years before their exit. They need to make sure that their corporate documents are in order. They need to start thinking about whether they need to do a valuation, whether they need to hire a broker to sell. Like I said, there are certain things that, an interesting thing, and this is funny always, is we want to pay as little taxes as we want, right? And so a lot of times we'll do things with our accountant and our bookkeepers to make it look like we're not as profitable as we are, which is actually the opposite of what you want to do when you're looking for a seller, right? When you're looking for a buyer, you actually need to show all the money that you're making.
That's right.
Which is funny. So in my firm, we do business law, and half of what we do is representing business owners, and a lot of it is what we call transactional, drafting a contract, revising the operating agreement, or helping them buy or sell a business. And when we say transactional, what that really means is it's not litigation. My lawyers don't go to court. We're not fighting. And I like to think of it as very constructive, like we're building stuff. And I'll never forget, we're looking at this business that my client wants to buy, and the seller literally said, "Oh, don't worry about any of the numbers of the tax returns because they're all fake." What does that mean? No, take my word for it. We really make a lot more money than we say we do. And I told my client, I was like, you need to walk away. And so it was kind of like we couldn't trust what any of the numbers said.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of different interesting points, Eric, because what I'm understanding from what you're telling me is that you have to do your due diligence, whether you're looking to grow or expand your business or looking to transition to sell your business to retire. And not just like your example, it's great because you're looking to sell it to your own employees, but maybe a business owner may have to sell it to their family members, which
Yes.
is different. Or
Which can
maybe
be
they
very
may sell it to a
problematic.
private equity firm, which yes, I see that in every.
I'll give you an example from yesterday. True story. This gentleman owns a business. He's in his, I would say, later 50s, and he's 100% owner. It's a corporation. He has never had a shareholders meeting. He doesn't even know if he has a shareholders agreement. He doesn't keep minutes. He doesn't have a minute book. He doesn't do any of the things we're supposed to do, right? And, he got away with it because he's the 100% owner. No one's really asking any questions. He stayed out of litigation, so nobody's poking around. And now he wants to bring on his son as the next generation and start transitioning equity to his son and start with a transition plan for his son. And so my question was, okay, well, let's look at the shareholders agreement. He goes, what shareholders agreement? Because even if it's family, and a lot of times people will still cut corners when it's family, you got to remember, now you're not owning 100%. Now you have to account for business expenses, and maybe you have to be more disciplined with commingling of funds. And I think about this. So I started my firm 100%, and then I brought on a partner, and Oscar and I worked out a sweat equity plan, which was our arrangement that we negotiated. And then all of a sudden I had to realize, I was like, wait a minute, I can't buy personal stuff on the Amazon account like I used to, right? And if I'm using the company credit card at lunch, is it really a business lunch? Or am I kind of like pushing the boundaries? Because it's one thing to have to answer to the IRS. It's another thing to look your partner in the eye and understand that we have a business relationship now.
That's right.
And so that discipline I find is hard for a lot of, especially family-owned businesses, that they, like my guy from yesterday, he never had the discipline of having an annual shareholders meeting, or having an annual board meeting, or even having good corporate records. And now in his situation, it's interesting. He was approached unilaterally a few years ago by a buyer, so they're going to use that valuation when they calculate what the son is going to, and the son's actually going to buy
the business.
And they're going to use that valuation that they received from the third party as the basis for their negotiation.
Do you find a certain age for someone looking to sell their business, or is it just, it depends, or what do you see from your perspective? Or is it when
I can speak
a certain milestone
personally,
for the business?
I think some entrepreneurs get bored. Mm-hmm. I think some entrepreneurs just see the opportunity to maximize their exit and maximize their value. And if they're, I've discovered this. There's a difference between an entrepreneur and a business owner. An entrepreneur is probably going to go start another business, and then another one, and then another one, and they might never stop, right? Whereas a business owner, maybe they inherited it, maybe it's just the only thing they've ever done. And I actually don't know. I think I might just be a business owner. I don't know if I'm an entrepreneur. I think I'm a pretty good business owner. And I've grown my firm. I think when you and I met, I probably had 1 or 2 employees. And now we're about 61. And it's been obviously a journey, but and by the way, I think something that a real business owner, like, I think they have to love it, because you mentioned it, you alluded to it anyways. It's so much easier to just have a W-2.
Yes.
Right? It's so much easier to just have a job.
Play it safe.
The floor is pretty high, but the ceiling is pretty low, and you're living in that space right there. And as the business owner or the entrepreneur, the ceiling might be the sky, but the floor, is right down there. And I've had months where I didn't pay myself because, at the end of the day, the business owner or the entrepreneur pays themselves last. They have to pay all their other bills first, and you can't not pay your assistant. You can't not pay your secretary.
From the legal perspective, when I talk to clients, sometimes they feel that the only way they would talk to someone like you is when they're in trouble.
And
is that true?
That is 20 times more expensive than talking to me before they're in trouble. It is 20 times more expensive. I'll give the easiest story. I love this story. Business owner comes to me and says, hey, I'm going to hire an all-star. I'm going to make them my super all-star salesperson, but I'm concerned that they might steal my clients. So I want them to sign an employment agreement. And by the way, if you're a business owner in Florida in particular, Florida is a very pro non-compete state. We call them restrictive covenants. So what are the restrictive covenants? Non-compete, non-solicitation, non-interference, non-disparagement, and non-disclosure. And so we can put all those pretty things inside an employment agreement, which you should be having your employees sign before they start. Or if you already have an employee, you can sit them down and say, hey, here's this agreement. Our legal team put this together. Now, mind you, don't lock them in a room. You got to give them, the rule of thumb is you got to give them 72 hours to go home and think about it and at least have the opportunity to consult with their own lawyer. But anyways, you can make them sign all this stuff. And so I say to the guy, listen, I will charge you $1,500 to prepare a really nice agreement. And not only that, it'll be a template that you can reuse over and over and over again. You don't need to call me every time you're going to hire someone. He goes, well, that's more money than I want to spend. Maybe I'll just find something on the internet. And I said to him, I said, listen, find whatever you want on the internet. I will charge you $500 to revise it. He goes, well, I don't know. I'll think about it. He does not hire me. 3 years later, he calls me. He's in a panic. Eric, I've got a big problem. I'm like, what's going on? He goes, remember that all-star salesperson? I just discovered that they set up a secret business and they've been diverting clients secretly to that business. And more importantly, their aunt is on the board of one of our biggest clients. And I go, well, how much business did you get from that client last year? He said $500,000 in revenue from that client. And I said, okay, what's your profit margin, right? Because you got to talk to business owners in language that they understand. They might not understand what a non-compete is, but they will understand what a profit is. And so he says, my profit margin is 50%. I'm like, wow, by the way, 50% is outstanding.
It is.
Right? In the legal industry, if we get 30%, we're very happy. My firm has always hovered around 20%, give or take. Now, with that being said, I pay for my car, I pay for my phone, I pay for some things that if I backed all of those out, maybe my profit would look nicer. Anyways, so this guy says I'm making 50% profit margin. So I'm like, all right, let's just do the math. You are going to lose 500,000 in revenue, meaning you're going to lose 250,000 in profit for your 100%. He goes, yeah. I'm like, that's money out of your kids and your wife, out of their mouth. And he goes, what do I do? I go, well, first things first, did you make him sign a contract? He says, yes. I go, great. Let me see it. He sends it over to me, and I can tell in 1 second that it wasn't my work, because all of us have our own fingerprints, and it wasn't my work, and it was unenforceable.
Wow.
It was a contract. It was a non-compete. So all non-competes, I know I'm way off topic, but all non-competes have 3 angles: geography, time, and the actual industry or the prohibited activity, right? So I might say 5 miles from my office for 3 years, you can't run a Mexican restaurant, right? Or whatever, like whatever the industry is. So this guy's industry was HR.
Wow.
And the industry in the contract was IT.
Oh.
So it was our friend Alejandrina. It would have been a great contract for her, not a great contract for my guy. And I got to tell you something, man. If he had brought it to me, I probably wouldn't even have charged him. I would have caught that in 3 seconds, because I would zero in on exactly that, because that's the first thing I'm going to look at. Because sure, he had a signed contract. It was a signed contract that he found on the internet. He didn't bother to proofread. And so to answer your original question, I told him, listen, you want to sue the guy, it'll be a $10,000 retainer. And the average litigation in Florida is about $100,000 a year, and they're lasting on average 2.5 years.
Wow.
So just the litigation costs, you're looking at $250. And I don't know if you remember in the earlier part of the story, I was going to charge him $1,500.
Wow.
To draft the agreement,
contract.
or $500 to catch that mistake.
Wow.
Yeah. So, listen, I think it's a Florida thing or a South Florida thing. People think they only need a lawyer when things are bad. I think it's the wrong mentality. I think it's a sign of immaturity, actually. And when I do business in other markets, like I do a lot of business in Texas and New York. In Texas and New York, every business owner has a lawyer on retainer. It's just a thing that they know. They know that they need to have a lawyer on retainer. And that retainer doesn't have to be a lot of money, but they know that, hey, let me run this by my lawyer, right? And so they keep themselves out of trouble. And so they don't have the mindset of, oh, that costs $1,500. They'll go, oh, I'm going to invest $1,500 and I'm going to save $250,000.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm learning that this is a great takeaway for our listeners and watchers, that you may want to consider as a business owner to have a lawyer as a retainer, that you're comfortable that you can run things by them in case they have a question. That's a great. A lot
of business law firms and some of my competitors are offering very affordable monthly flat fees to just have a lawyer on call.
That's amazing.
Like as little as $500 a month, and you just know you have peace of mind. If I ever have a question, I'll always run it by my lawyer.
That's amazing. Actually, that is actually a great way to end this episode, because the next episode that I want to talk about are new legal trends in the industry, in business. So
Can we talk about AI?
we can talk about AI. We can talk about what's trending, what you see on your perspective from the business side. So thank you very much for all our audience and watchers. As we like to say at Corwell Management, retirement and financial confidence starts here. Stay tuned to our next episode where we're going to talk about trends in the industry, in the legal world as a business owner. Thank you.